Gormley here has a business called International Cannabrands, which you might remember was featured on one of our podcasts back in February, January. Anyways, I can't remember the guy's name we talked to, but he...
Jeff Pritz, the former CEO, current chairman of the board.
Former chairman of the...
Current chairman of the board, former CEO.
Those guys are great.
Now you're the new CEO.
I am the new CEO, newly minted. We dropped the announcement July 23rd.
Right.
My acting COO, Neil Pomeroy, joined the company as well, and we are in full turnaround mode.
Are you going to lose the crazy symbol, JUJU.A? That's, I was always saying to the guys, that's why nobody can find this stock and why it doesn't trade. Nobody knows how to pull up .A stocks.
That I've had, if I had a dime for every time that issue has been presented, I'd be a wealthy man.
Yeah, the JUJU, I think, is a great
JUJU is very sticky.
JUJU, I like it.
Obviously,
yeah, good juju.
Yeah, the .A is obviously connotes the preferred shares.
Right.
So we're presently under advisement addressing that issue now.
Cool. So tell me about the business.
Are these common shares? Are they common? They're common shares, right?
When you have a .A, it means you have common and preferred.
Right.
So the .A connotes the preferred structure.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay. I get it.
That's where you get the .A.
All right. All right. Well, we could talk about that later.
Yeah.
Sure.
So tell us about, so last I recall, JUJU had a relationship with Julian Marley, which
Correct.
is where the JUJU came from.
That's correct.
And there was some other bits and pieces in there, and I thought, this sounds promising, but there was something...
Sure.
It just didn't smell right. It didn't seem to have all the moving pieces that it needed. So tell me what's changed. What are you going to change?
So the mandate presently, which is now board approved as of August 18th, is to focus on an accretive acquisition strategy of profitable off-market emerging brands in cannabis. I liken it to a regional beer model, right? Where you come in and you start to roll up these household brands. And right now we're presently focused on acquisitions south of the border in the US, though we are actively and aggressively looking for a Canadian asset that will be synergistic with the platform we're creating. So today we were happy to announce the acquisition of a company called Riotous, which provides financing services to...
Where are they based out of?
Washington State, Seattle.
Okay.
And they're engaged in an agreement with Solstice, which is the fourth largest cultivator and manufacturer in the Washington market, based out of Seattle. And Riotous provides financial services and financing services for licensed and lawfully operating cultivators and manufacturers. So we're excited about that transaction. Our strategy, as I mentioned, is to really roll up these brands, but what will distinguish International Cannabrands in the market is that we'll be profitable. We signed an LOI with a company called La Vida Verde. We anticipate being able to close the definitive agreement soon, and we'll be able to finance, we intend on financing the full acquisition of a 51% stake in La Vida Verde, which is a suite of very popular brands.
And where does that take place?
Northern California. That company is based out of Northern California.
Right.
The principals in that business are seasoned and well-respected cannabis entrepreneurs.
So business in the U.S. regarding cannabis is confined to the state they're in. Is that correct?
Yes.
You can't,
no cross-border commerce.
Okay, that's okay. So, but you're going to be in Washington and you're going to be in California. Those are your two first jurisdictions.
Yeah, the states is still largely run under the Cole Memorandum. Deputy Attorney James Cole, who was Deputy Attorney under Eric Holder during the Obama administration, issued a proclamation in August of 2013 to the states, saying that the federal government would step back and leave businesses that had been, were lawfully operating in states where the electorate or the legislature had spoken, as long as the business did not violate two basic principles. One was the federal government does not want any cannabis products being sold or distributed to children, minors, in any form. And as you can imagine, that's a real hardship for people who have children that suffer from debilitating pediatric seizure disorders, epilepsy.
No,
you've heard of Charlotte's Web.
Absolutely.
So this is a big problem. It's created a big refugee, medical refugee market.
Probably wasn't their intent, but...
Wasn't their intent, but
there's some screwy rules over...
Absolutely.
Screwy rules everywhere.
It doesn't make sense.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying, look, at the end of the day, if you can take something that's going to alleviate pain you can't even imagine. Or,
absolutely.
And you know.
Okay, so then you've got all these different brands coming together.
And then, of course, just to finish the point, of course, the other tenet of the Cole Memorandum was no interstate commerce. So that leaves you having to silo businesses in market, so you can't franchise. The only thing you can do is cross the state border with packaging, but if you're going to put a cannabis product in packaging that's leveraged in, say, California, and you want to do the same in Washington State or Nevada, you have to actually manufacture and fulfill in the state. So you can't cross the border with cannabis products. You can only cross the border with packaging.
So when you identify a business that's profitable that you want to absorb, how do you're gonna raise the money at that point for each?
It comes down, the first thing that we're really looking at are the management teams, right? So when you look
you want to keep the management teams, generally speaking, is that?
If they're profitable.
Yeah, obviously, then they've done something right.
Well, and there's not that many of them. And part of the challenge we've faced north of the border here in Canada in trying to find an asset for our portfolio is identifying a profitable Canadian cannabis company. They don't grow on trees.
That's a punchline around here.
Right?
You know, yesterday we saw Tilray come out with a big increase in revenue, but a bigger increase in losses.
Yes.
And the stock jumped like a
black rabbit.
Yeah.
I was going to say like a big frog.
Yeah.
Kangaroo.
Have pogo stick, will jump.
Right.
But, yeah.
Anyway, up like at one point $10 from yesterday. Anyway,
so you've got 80 million plus shares outstanding right now, and you're trading at a dime, which sounds like a great acquisition level.
10-bagger on the horizon.
I was gonna say
10-bagger on the horizon.
You know what? Right? It's too bad we weren't during our old show, the 10-baggers.
Well, because
we could segue right in.
We're the cannabis 10-bagger, or that's our intent.
CAB.
Yeah,
no, CT. So I got that wrong. Sorry.
Yeah. CTB.
So at least I can see from the volume. We're looking at the chart here. If we could put the chart.
Can I just say? I just looked at that chart. It's got something right there at the end there where it looks like it's sort of leaving. You know, it looks.
There we go.
Yeah, I like. You know what I like on this thing? I'll show you right here.
Please.
I like this action right here, this big volume day.
Yep.
This sort of sticks out like a sore thumb. You got this nice green candle. You got a little extension here. So, but back and fill. But if it can get going here and then penetrate that high, which is.
That's our intention, Ed.
There you go.
And we have a pipeline of acquisitions.
It looks. You can see that this bottom. It looks like it's a saucer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's your cup?
Look,
here's my saucer.
Look, the reality is the Canadian market right now is driven by extreme exuberance over fundamentals.
Right, that's generous.
Right. And
some would say lunacy.
Well,
and when did you've been here before, but
I'm American. Our definition of lunacy is
it's a whole other threshold. What political party, right?
Yeah.
We're not going there.
The lunatics are always on the other side.
That's actually an important conversation south of the border because we feel that Canada has been. Look, the reality is, Bay Street is the Wall Street of the cannabis business. And the Canadians just bushwhacked us and took over. And there'll be Canadian hegemony in the financial markets around cannabis for some time to come. Because
that's a very astute statement.
Because even if the United States in the next administration, whether that be another Republican, whether that be Trump, or whether that be a Democrat, the left wing, the libertarian wing of the Republican Party all want cannabis prohibition repealed. It's been a failure to the U.S. taxpayer, the war on marijuana. We've spent billions incarcerating non-trafficking related offenders, and they're mostly young men of color. So it's a really it's a thorny issue all the way around.
Prison thing is insane because it's not crimes. It's crime. Like if it's a crime, it's a crime against yourself, right? Drug use,
right?
And again, I'm not.
That's a Canadian point of view that I share.
Yeah.
That really doesn't gain much traction south of the border. So what I see in Canada, and the reason I'm up here, and the reason why you're going to see a lot of.
So are you going to live up here for a while, or?
I'm here all the time.
Okay, and out of Calgary, or?
We're headquartered out of Calgary. We have offices in New York, Denver, and Los Angeles, but I'm up in Toronto every other week.
Okay.
This is where all the action is in the cannabis industry.
Yeah, for sure.
If you, whether you're American or European or Canadian, or even a lot of the South American ventures that are gaining traction and popularity now, they all come up to Canada for financial services, capital, and financial advice, because this is the only mature market in the financial institutions surrounding cannabis. And even if we repeal federal prohibition in the United States, it's still going to take half a decade to work out what the financial institutions are going to do. And by that point, people acquiring companies, majors like Seagram's and companies of Diageo, they're going to look to their brethren north of the border who have been doing this for a number of years, who have 7, 8, 9-figure transactions under their belt. They're not just going to kick it to a Wall Street firm, you know, where the only qualification these guys have is that they did some research in college, if you know what I mean. Right. So Canada will, for the unforeseeable future, be the Wall Street of cannabis, and that's why we're here.
Okay, so getting back to your company, you've got this this strategy to acquire companies, and as you say, it's very tough to find a company that's profitable. In fact, one might argue even impossible. So, how are you going to, you know, sort of address that sort of disconnect between what you want to do and what you can do?
That's a great question. To tell you the truth, there are some phenomenal companies out there, largely California-based, that have earnings and profits and are real strong businesses. You have to understand that anyone worth their salt in this market in the US got their start in the black market. That's a very particular personality type. And in order to survive the black market, to then thrive and now go the next step to legitimize, you have to have good standard business practices. So there really are companies in the space with solid fundamentals and auditable financials. It's just knowing who they are and actually targeting the best of breed, which are largely off market. That's the way to go. And that's where my 7 years in the cannabis industry, being boots on the ground in the US, learning cultivation, learning dispensary operations, learning both public and private structures in the space has served me and will ultimately serve International Cannabrands. I've brought a world-class team on with me to help effectuate our business plan, and we have a synergistic accretive acquisition pipeline that I think the market will respond really well to. I think what you're going to see from us over the coming weeks and months are very transparent press announcements based on fundamentals. We're not going to be releasing hype, and that's what's going to distinguish us. We are an aggregator, and we are an aggregator of profitable businesses and world-class assets that have brand recognition. And that's going to be the distinction that ICL, International Cannabrands, brings to the market, as opposed to, you know, some of the usual suspects you mentioned earlier.
Right. Great. Okay. So you recently closed a financing.
Yes.
And so is that going to add, is that reflected in the share count at 80 million? It is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
all right.
How much did you raise?
We did a small bridge round, 600,000 Canadian.
Right. Okay.
We also...
At what price?
That was, it varied depending on the group that came in and the timing of the group. All of it is, I encourage your viewers to check out our listings and check out
press releases.
all of our press releases. Everything
filings.
is in there in the filings. But we also effectuated, we have a credit facility for up to 10 million Canadian that we can draw down against. We would only do that to apply to acquisitions, but we've had tremendous traction and interest here on Bay Street, as well as in Calgary and Vancouver, and I'm confident that in the next coming weeks we will raise the capital to close the La Vida Verde transaction that has become kind of a centerpiece to what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's interesting. So are you going to stick to growers and product manufacturers in the cannabis space? You've got this other company that's more into the leasing side of it?
Correct.
So is that,
that tuck-in and that strategy is to bring into the portfolio companies that throw off cash.
Right.
We want earnings. We want profits. We want to be able to announce and share with the market our monthly, weekly, quarterly earnings in certain circumstances. We want the market to see that International Cannabrands is a company that's driven by fundamentals, not by exuberance or hype. And so brands obviously eat cash, and the brands we're targeting are actually profitable. And we want micro brands that have strong regional recognition in the markets they serve, that have the potential, when the time comes, to be franchisable brands. And so when you look at the suite of product brands within the La Vida Verde family, you'll observe that there are brands that are not only recognized and supported within California, but that have great brand recognition and name recognition across state borders, and even up here in Canada. And so that's really the profile we're looking for. And as I said from the outset, you've got to think the regional beer model. That's really what we're looking to achieve here. The way regional beers were rolled up, we want to do the same thing. We want smart brands that have a strong, dedicated, loyal consumer base in the markets that they serve, that serve as indicators, as harbingers of what would be a great national or international level brand.
Okay.
So that when that time comes, we're perfectly positioned.
So is the Julian Marley transaction still alive?
Yes. So one of the things I'm happy to report is that we're going through a rebrand there. We have recently released that we're entering the market with new packaging. Our focus is going to be to deliver very high quality cannabis products at a very low cost to millennials. That brand really speaks to millennial males. Now, naturally, we want to capture everybody, but when you are a brand in cannabis, you really have to stick to your knitting if you want to grow and scale. And our intention is to come out of the gate with very sexy, sleek, millennial-friendly packaging that is really going to knock the socks off the consumer, and to provide them with high-quality cannabis products at a price point that they can't achieve anywhere else.
Right.
And that's really where the JUJU Royal brand is going to reside.
Okay.
It's going to be a luxury brand for millennials at an affordable price.
Interesting. Sounds like you've really got your sort of act together there. Like, I mean, you're saying all the things that...
Thank you.
Yeah, if you do what you say you're going to do,
listen,
it should be a winner, right? Because you're eloquent, you speak well, you articulate well.
Thank you, sir.
You know, you do. And you know, you've seen a lot of guys come in and go.
Look, I'm on the Midas letter talking to Ed and James. I mean,
Yeah.
it's clear I've arrived.
There you go.
So,
you know what?
I mean,
There you
what
go.
more is there to say?
Already a success.
You know what?
That's right.
I've got the envelope. I'm passing it underneath. James,
And I have your samples
feel
for
free
later.
to put something in that envelope.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, my contribution.
Maybe some reefer or something.
Okay, well, tell you what, Stephen, that's been a great introduction.
Yeah.